I had no idea what to expect. I moved from one country to another on a bit of a whim, and I had this grand idea that I would renovate a cheap house, try and do everything myself on a budget, and basically see how long I would last. Thing is, I didn't have any actual experience building anything, but I figured I can try. Now it's been 4 years, and somehow I am still here. Over the past years, I've demolished rotten walls, put in new ones, restored windows, built decks, made a lot of fitted furniture, and spent approximately 2,865 hours sanding, something no one ever talks about. I've learned to use tools for the first time and can now tell you irrevocably which ones I don't like. Now, this is not a perfect build, I didn't always make the right choices, and everything I made at the start definitely looks very rustic, but as time goes by, things improve. I think. This video shows everything I've done during 4 years of renovating, moving from a flat share in London to a cheap house from the 1850s tucked inside a Swedish forest. A lot has happened. I'm going to try and recap the first 3 years, and then I'll dive a little bit deeper into this last 4th year. This is the existing interior. There are 2 rooms in the front and 2 smaller ones in the back. The larger space is a living room with an old fireplace that leads to a small blue room with water damage in the back. On the other side is a smaller room which I plan to turn into a study, and this one leads to a kitchen. The attic is built like a shed, but the house has electricity, its own well water, and a wood stove and fireplace that don't function. Outside there's also a small guest house, an outhouse, and the shower requires me to take buckets of water outside. For a time, 2 brothers lived here with their families, each occupying one side of the house, but most recently it's been kept as a summer house. This is how it all began. I spent the first few weeks cleaning and thinking and doing drawings. I looked up Swedish building standards, I opened up walls, trying to find studs that I couldn't find. Somewhat started at realizing this timber facade was hiding a log cabin, which sort of rendered all my drawings useless. I researched the most pressing issues I had to deal with, the water damage at the back of the house, and the water pipes that would need to be buried for winter. At the same time, I planned to change the layout. I took out the wall between the old kitchen and the small blue room so I could create a better back entrance that would lead into a bigger kitchen. I didn't actually know how to approach any of these issues, and trying to gather all the information I needed was quite stressful, but I got there, and when I started the work, my parents came to visit. They're not DIY people, but before we knew it, we were deep in the trenches. Quite literally. My mum was digging the entire trench to bury the water pipe, and my dad was extending the metal roof in the back, which had been causing the leakage. We spent several months working very hard until no one had fun anymore, but we made a start. I took out an entire section of the back wall and window because it was all rotten. The joists in the ceiling were partially gone, so I learned how to sister them and rebuilt everything. We prepared the water pipes, lined them with a heating cable, ready to be buried, but what I remember most was how much faster the rebuilding was compared to demolishing and attempting to fix the old. When my parents left, the back of the house was a shell. I'd relocated the window in the rotten wall to the other side of the kitchen, where I'd begun to build part of a simple countertop. It was freestanding and wobbly, my very first piece of joinery. I was in a rush to winterproof the sheds that housed the water pump. Burying the pipes wasn't enough, I needed to insulate the shed as well. I tried to work around the existing, but it made everything more difficult, so I looked up how to build a shed, and I used timber left over from the house and some new from materials I had delivered. I built it inside the kitchen because that's where I had a level floor, but then I struggled to take it all outside again because it got so heavy. This would be the very first tiny shed I ever built, and it's far from perfect. The timber from the door shrinks and expands a lot with the weather, which makes it difficult to open and close. I also wish I'd put in a proper floor, but it works. I insulated everything, I added a little radiator, it holds heat, and my pipes don't freeze. Just as I was finishing, a thick layer of frost clung to the roof. My first Swedish winter had arrived. I got used to the cold. Inside, I lived in the smallest room. I'd moved the outdoor table inside, had a small bed and an electrical radiator, but the space I was working in was cold. So I'm a little bit worried about what I'm going to find. I now have to take out this part of the floor because it's rotten. There's the floor joists underneath are also partly rotten. So hopefully there's not too much and I can just fix this bit because that's all I have materials for. Remember when I said that if there was a lot more rotten parts to this, then that would be an issue? Well, that's where we're at. These two joists from start to finish are done. I lived with that huge hole in the floor for many months while I replaced those joists. Unfortunately, this also meant mice were running throughout the house all night long. I was very relieved when I finally closed the floor, leveled it to match the kitchen, and mice could no longer get inside.
Hey! Oh.
But the space was still unlivable. This was going to be a back entrance with a small room for a compost toilet that would lead to a kitchen. I quickly realized how limiting it is to renovate the house you live in at the same time. It really complicates the bigger jobs. So I tried to stick to one small area at a time, and I kept my solutions as simple as possible.
Oh. Yes.
I built the toilet first. Instead of a window, I gave it little shutters because in my mind at the time, sourcing a window just seemed too overwhelming. I built walls after watching a few videos, put up plasterboard, which was awful, built a small unit for sawdust and toilet paper, which made me realize I might dislike MDF even more, and I made a door. I can tell you that, seeing as this is the first thing I built, it's also going to be the first thing I'll have to rebuild. I'm ready! Before I continue the kitchen, I built myself a quick outdoor workbench so I had a better space to work. This was a really good call. It's probably the most simple yet effective thing I've built.
No way.
simple being a key word here because I was beginning to understand that that was all I was capable of at most. My vision for this house was to transform it into a warm and elegant modernist home with lots of built in furniture, mid tone timber, everything specifically designed for the house. I prepared these mood boards highlighting all my hopes and dreams, but at this point, I knew the result was going to be wobbly and rustic and certainly not elegant, not with the cheap pine I could afford. I also realized that despite being an interior designer and having worked with contractors, designing interiors is very different from building them. In fact, my high expectations for luxury design made it very difficult to make the switch and tolerate my own feeble DIY work. But the truth is, I didn't have too much time to think about it. At this point, I just needed to create a space that was livable. I am really excited because I have a stained kitchen surface, which means that I can finally use it again. By now, it had been a year, and finally having a kitchen was going to make a drastic difference. That first winter, I'd used that wobbly unit to cook in the freezing cold while wearing all my layers, and that was not something I wanted to do a second winter. I have been on the verge of putting in my kitchen counter for probably the past 6 months. Every time I think I am so close, something happens. We are getting somewhere. This is very exciting. The best moment was fixing the counter to the walls. Suddenly, my kitchen was solid. I could take my food and kitchen utensils out of my little room and store them on the shelves. It felt so luxurious, even though the design was very simple. The whole thing is made of rough exterior boards and construction timber, so I tried to make it a little bit more special by adding these Japanese inspired joinery details. The doors. On the other side of the room, I still had a lot to finish. I planned to build an open storage unit next to the old stove that would wrap around the wall, house a fridge, and turn into a wardrobe in the back entrance area. But first, I turned a cupboard underneath the stairs to the attic into a little shoe unit. A little shelving unit in here, and it's not going to be very deep. Things like gloves, and I have a little washing machine. I'm going to keep the washing machine in here. At this time, I was trying to do everything as cheap as possible, so I made the unit with roofing tongue and groove, which was the cheapest timber I could find. Okay. I imagine just sliding this in. It's not sliding. It does not slide. Oh! Look at this. I think that's looking very cute. Just imagine when this built-in closet is going to be here around the fridge. And then you've got this little welcome unit. For the wraparound unit, I decided to use MDF, which was not a great choice. MDF is arguably worse than plasterboard to work with. Usually when people make built-in units like these, they would create a box out of ply for each section, then place these next to each other and add trims to finish it. But plywood is very expensive, so instead I built frameworks against the floor and the ceiling, and then fixed lengths of MDF to those, which saved on a lot of materials. With this unit done, I turned the old kitchen and blue room into one bigger space, an entrance with storage for shoes and coats, a small toilet, and a kitchen with lots of light and a huge countertop. The pine tongue and groove was a much cheaper version of what I had originally wanted for the space, but I grew to appreciate it, and having so much wood in the house feels very calming. Now I really wanted to continue with the smallest front room, but that meant I needed somewhere else to live. I figured a quick paint job would make the guest house much cozier and I could temporarily stay in it. But that didn't quite work out the way I imagined it. The guest house is very small and quite dark and cold, and I couldn't help but expose the pitched ceiling, which immediately turned it into a much bigger project, but also a much nicer space.
I should be able to sort of take this out. Kind of. Bring in the lights.
With these new plans, I needed materials I didn't have, and because delivery is expensive, I took my bike.
Where is it?
I found it. Can I add more, or should I not risk it for today?
What does that look like? Yeah, okay.
This was a lot of work, but it turned into a much nicer space. I built shelves and a desk, a water jug with a sink and bucket underneath, and lots of pegs along the top wall for hanging things. I moved in, and after 2 years of renovating, I was finally able to start work on the 2 living spaces in the house.
This is my plan. Desk, seating, storage.
That's a lot of timber for such a tiny room. I had big plans for this tiny room. The house is small and I wanted to feel simple and unified, so I wanted to continue the wood paneling. Although it doesn't quite match my original version, I do really like the warmth that the wood adds.
Okay, let's see if it kind of fits.
I also decided to simplify my overall expectations for this house. Originally, I imagined this to be a study, a workspace with a library. The larger room would become a living room, and I would create a bedroom and an attic space upstairs. But those first years had been very overwhelming. Tackling these projects and dealing with issues that were all completely new caused a lot of stress. The attic is a very basic structure, and fixing it up would mean a lot more than just adding some insulation. It would probably turn into a much bigger structural job. So I decided to let go of that idea for the time being. Instead, I would make the rooms downstairs multifunctional. The study would be an active space with a desk and library, and the possibility to use it as a dining space. I would add a banquette seat that could be turned into a guest bed. And the living room would be one for relaxation.
The shelf is going to sit here. Hopefully I did it right.
Two of them. My favourite part of this renovation was definitely building the fitted furniture. My basic woodworking skills were improving a little. I bought myself a Japanese handsaw. I started cutting these funny joints, and despite the simplicity, everything started to look a little bit better. Despite the small dimensions of this room, I fitted a lot. The library transforms into a desk, and that desk turns a corner and becomes a banquette seat. In turn, that banquette can be changed into a bed. I specifically like this design because it takes up no additional space. I bought the cheapest drawer runners I could find and made my first drawers. I installed cabinet hinges for the first time, and everything looks just a little bit better than what I built in the kitchen. like it. I like it. I think I like it. This is my tiny entrance space behind the front door. I don't use it much, but I wanted to make it my own. Oh my gosh, look at that. I figured I would give this room another function and make it a space where I could dry laundry during the colder months. So I constructed a little rack near the ceiling and put up pegs on the walls to hang bags. Besides all the work indoors, I also started to work on the garden during the summers. I began a vegetable patch, moving old logs and crates to build several beds. I grew some things, although the majority didn't quite produce much fruit. My success was quite limited, so I decided the garden at this point was not going to be a huge priority, but I did want to try my hand at building a greenhouse. It was going to be a simple timber structure made with fence posts and plastic wrap, something cheap but functional. Last night was the most intense storm that I have ever experienced. It was kind of terrifying. Outside, something definitely happened. I have a giant tree in my garden. There were a few more trees that downed. I mean, a few more trees that I can see from my house. There's this one here, and then there's this tree up here. It's like wedged around a tree on that side there. It's crazy. Look at this. Look at this road. All of these downs trees, and I've already cut them through. This up here, you can access the entire length of this greenhouse by opening up each section. I mean, it's nice though, isn't it? In theory. It just doesn't work. So that's an issue. So it didn't work. The plastic sheets didn't stay in place, and the material wasn't transparent enough to actually work as a greenhouse. I was going to have to change the design completely and complicate it the opposite of what I'd wanted to do, so I let it be for a while. I tried a few other things. I made wildflower patches at fields and planted fruit trees with my mum. We also made a few more vegetable beds. Show me the skills.
So you want roughly the leopard bar, yeah?
It's so tiny!
A year after the storm and the tree fell in the back of my garden, I got a chainsaw lesson from a friendly Brit. A neighbour had already come by to cut the trees in several bigger pieces, and now we were finally able to clear all of it. Oh, the happy face is not happy anymore. Huh. A year later, I went back to my failed greenhouse. I was ready to change it completely. I added to the design to create an entrance and turn it into a little building I could walk into with raised beds and shelves. My parents were visiting, so they were able to help cutting materials and making the beds and getting the tiny pitched roof on top of the structure. Somehow this turned into an unexpected fairy tale building that got me really excited to think outside the box a little bit more. Apart from the vegetable garden, it was time to improve the spaces outside the house. The back entrance was the one I used all day long and it looked awful. There was a big concrete patio that was crumbling, there was a very blue door, and it had a plastic awning that was held together with pieces of metal string. I wanted to cover it with timber planks and extend the deck a little. I had more projects to work on outside. I've put a lot of wood in my guest house. I have wood at the front of the house. And I needed a space to store all of that, so I cleared a patch at the back of the house. I'm going to build something right here. Last year I made this really awful firewood storage in a day, and this year I'm going to make one down this side of the house, which is going to be an improvement. These are all the pieces for the main framework, so I'm going to start putting this thing together. After building all those little structures, I was finally ready for my biggest outdoor project yet. I had longed for a deck along the side and the front of the house, but a project of that size seemed so big and scary. I decided to start small and just focus on the deck along the side of the house only. And once I started digging the holes for the fitters, I seemed to break through that mental block. And suddenly, the project was happening. So the question is, do we like this? Huh. The first changes to the living room started while I was working on the study. My chimney man came. The old chimney was a little bit slanted and crumbling ever so slightly, so they came in and fixed it. Old chimney. And they're working on a new chimney. Got myself a chimney and some debris and a pretty hole. So now I'm going to get a cast iron wood stove to connect to that pipe and put it in front here. So we have something exciting happening, and that is, look at this. My stove. I have an actual fire going. It looks almost fake. And I am officially starting this living room renovation. It's actually happening, who knew? My idea for this living room was that it should be the most comfortable room in the house. While the study is a space for activity, this is a space for rest. But it also needs to combine a few functions. Because the house is so small, I want this living room to also function as a bedroom. But I don't want to see a bed. So I planned a few larger builds. First, a wardrobe along one wall. I would make it a narrow structure to not occupy too much space in the room. It would store clothes and bedding during the day. To keep it well ventilated, the structure would remain open and I would make the doors out of fabric, allowing airflow. Then I'd build a huge sofa in front of it, essentially a larger and more comfortable version of the banquette in the study, and I would make another pull-out bed so I'd have another space to sleep. This rod is for hanging up sheets. Sheets! Shelving. So, this I'm going to do. This unit marks the end of year 3. For my 4th year in Sweden, I plan to finish most of the main projects to a degree, finish my living room, build that giant sofa, upgrade the exterior of the house, and make living here more comfortable. I have not touched this room since spring, but this is my living room, and so far I have done a floor, a wardrobe. Imagine having a room where it's just a giant sofa. My first project in here though is to work on this fireplace. So cold in here. It's 5 degrees right now. I really want to turn on my fireplace, but I'm still chipping away at it and it's covered in things. Now with the walls finished, I was able to start work on my sofa. This is the drawing I was working on. This is the main elevation against the wardrobe, but I'm trying to figure out in detail exactly what's happening with all of the little pieces. So recently, whenever I've ordered some wood, I've made sure to add some 45 by 45s for the framework, so I've got enough to make this sofa. After 3 years of renovating and building things, I finally started to feel comfortable. My house felt like an enjoyable space to live, and I also began to feel more confident doing carpentry jobs. For the first time, I felt that my interior design background wasn't a roadblock anymore, but it actually helped me. All my designs are still very basic, but I feel more capable, and that makes a huge difference. At the end of this seating, I've got this sliver of space, and I'm going to use that to create a very narrow unit along this wall. Uh-oh. This is going to be another magazine shelf. So, and now I can put this lead through my little lead hole, which I made in the shelf up here. So I hope it works. Yeah, this is cute. really does look so lush. Ta-da! I can hardly believe that I just spent 3 days just adding wadding to these mattresses. But I now have this amazing stack. It took more than 3 years to make all the rooms in the house livable. There are still unfinished elements, detailing, some furniture. The chimney still needs to be plastered, but it's mostly there. The craziest thing is that despite all of the padding, it could use more. Wow, this is the biggest sofa in the world. Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do with all this space? Okay, I don't have anything more to say. I haven't properly shown this yet. This side of the sofa turns into a bed. So while finishing this last project, I left my house for 2 months. I hiked the Arizona Trail, immersing myself in a different landscape, climate, day-to-day life. It was amazing to be away, but I was also happy to come home. After that, my chimney man came back again. He fixed a wood stove in my kitchen. They made quite a few holes in the kitchen and in the attic, and then patched them up again, giving me an additional way to heat the last cold space in the house. I feel like having heat in this kitchen is just peak luxury. I could use some steps to get up to my deck, so I'm going to build some. Oh wow. Blueberries. I think this is very cute. I wanted to curve this little table end and then also curve this bit, but my jigsaw broke, so I can't do that. I'll do that when I have the chance. I like to design these elements that flow into one another. The bench that runs along the side of the house turns a corner, incorporates a column, flows into the steps, which then turn into a plant pot and turn into a shelf along the house again. All those architectural lines just make me really happy when I look at them. It actually turned out nicer than I thought it was going to be. Right. This is sort of surprising. Updates. My parents are here. We did lots of driving around and we picked up some scaffolding. This was a year that I was going to tackle the exterior. The scaffolding was courtesy of Chimney Man. The only downside was that it was very heavy. I'm not sure how, but we somehow managed to put this together. It was a thing. Now the big question is, what color am I going to paint this traditional Swedish house? This house is painted in traditional phthalo red paint, which turns to a powder when it gets old, and any touch leaves a red mark. Before applying new paint, you have to brush off all the old powder. With my parents, we were able to put up the scaffolding and move it around a few times so I could reach the highest part of the walls. This did turn out to be an incredible amount of work. Alright, what did I choose? Black, green, yellow, purple. It's red. Such an anticlimax. I am sticking with the traditional paints. I think it looks so nice against the the beige and the green. I think it will be a really nice poppy contrast. So this side looks nice. Much cleaner than before. I mean, very much the same, but like a better version. I wasn't able to finish the front or the back of the house before my parents went home again, but we did start work on the plastic roof covering the back entrance. My dad helped demolish what was left of the existing. My mum painted the different pieces, and I'd hoped to build a new and install it with them, but they left before I got the chance. So instead, I decided to build it in place. It's a dragon. I need to fix that corner of the roof. When I first bought this house, my dad placed a garbage bag there, and that has been the solution for the past 4 years. I got a sheet of metal and I am creating a template so I can fix that underneath the roof tiles and make sure that it doesn't leak, but also that there's no garbage bag in the roof anymore. Oh dear. I'm starting to rethink my life choices. Okay, it looks so awful. I'm going to cover the exposed aluminium with more asphalt. So at least it looks black instead of shiny. Oh my gosh! I am so relieved that this is finally done. Look at my little dragon faces. I'm literally scraping the last paint out of this paint bucket to be able to finish it. I am extending this deck along the front of the house. I made the drawings, I have all of the measurements, and I'm trying to find a way to measure where the first pier is going to be. I'm not convinced this is a great way to do it, especially considering the type of string I have, but maybe that's good enough.
first stringer.
After all those improvements around the house, I wanted to tackle another big eyesore, the front porch. I had just got back from a few weeks in London where I'd finally sorted everything left in a storage unit, and I'd come back with some of my more fabulous London outfits, wholly unsuitable for DIY work in the Swedish forest, so I decided the best thing to do was to take the opportunity and wear them one last time. I'll be wearing my fabulous London outfits. Very inconvenient. Also, what I didn't quite think about was the weather, because it's very cold. I mean, who wouldn't paint and wear something like this at the same time? I'm going to try and do this. Just make the porch a little bit nicer. Okay, my original idea was that I wanted the porch roof to come down more on the sides because proportionally it would look a lot nicer. However, I can't do that because I have roof access here and the chimney people need to be able to get to the chimney. So I thought it would be really cute if I created little wings underneath the existing roof. And on that side I put in hinges, so the roof can simply come down. So this way, I would still have access to the roof. I think this turned out to be one of the cutest projects. Of course, it's unfinished. I have new timber to replace the existing porch, the wings need more work, I want to add planters next to the door, but for now, it shows such potential for a really beautiful entrance, and coming spring, I'm really excited to continue working on this. This year my projects were big and time consuming. I thought I'd finish the exterior completely, but I still have a lot of work to do. I finished a year building another firewood shed, or started to build one at least. Moving into a new year with a half-finished project is quite telling. The work never ends. It's funny. I didn't know if I was going to enjoy this life here, if I was going to stay, if I was ever going to finish this house, but here I am. Not finished, but ready for another year.